AAA, peace fam, absolute salute. Enter the boss, aka Enter the guy, now tapping in with another reading segment brought to you by Quantum Melanin Media. And as always, the amazing goddess Mahal Keitha is right here by my side, and I'm going to continue reading from our body of work called the Occult Media Spell, and that is actually based on our latest mainstream body of work called The Legacy Document, which is live on Amazon now, and it's about to be a bestseller. It's not yet, but on everything, this thing's so crazy. So here we go. Chapter 6, The Hijacking of the Mind Sciences, Institutional Capture and the Inversion of Psychology. The weaponization of culture and the deployment of trauma-based control required a critical preparatory step, the capture and inversion of the very institutions responsible for defining mental health and educating the next generation. The fields of psychology and public education were transformed from disciplines of healing and enlightenment into instruments of social engineering. This was not a gradual drift, but a deliberate, politically driven campaign to redefine normalcy, pathologize traditional values, and bypass parental authority, creating a population psychologically primed for the media spell. The 1973 APA decision, a political coup, not a scientific consensus. For decades, the American Psychiatric Association, APA, classified homosexuality as a sociopathic personality disturbance in its Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM. This classification was based on a century of clinical observation and psychoanalytic theory. However, in 1973, in a move that sent shockwaves through the psychiatric community, the APA Board of Trustees voted to remove homosexuality from the DSM. This decision was not the result of new scientific discovery or a sudden clinical consensus. It was the culmination of a years-long, highly organized political lobbying campaign by gay rights activists. These activists, employing tactics of disruption and intimidation, systematically targeted APA conferences and meetings, demanding the depatholization of homosexuality. The final vote was not a matter of science, but of political pressure. As a result, the condition once understood as a psychological disorder requiring therapy and understanding was instantly redefined as a normal and healthy variation of human sexuality. This act of institutional capture was a profound victory for the inversion doctrine. Peep this. It established a precedent that psychological truth was not to be determined by clinical evidence but by political power. It effectively silenced a century of psychoanalytic thought and created a new orthodoxy enforced by the threat of professional ostracism. The in crowd, basically. Any therapist who continued to view homosexuality as a treatable condition was now branded a bigot. The very institution meant to be the guardian of mental health had been compromised, its scientific integrity sacrificed for political expediency. This created the institutional framework for the next phase of the agenda, the indoctrination of children. The classroom as a re-education camp. With the psychological establishment captured, the control system turned its attention to the public school system. The redefinition of homosexuality as a normal, healthy lifestyle was no longer a matter for academic debate. It became a moral imperative to be taught to children at the earliest age possible. Under the guise of anti-bullying and inclusivity, a new curriculum began to be introduced in schools across the country, one that presented a radical new version of gender and sexuality. Children were taught that gender was a social construct, that their biological sex was irrelevant, and that they could choose their own identity from an ever-expanding menu of options. This was not education, it was indoctrination, a systematic attempt to sever the connection between the child and their own biological reality, their family, and their cultural heritage. This curriculum was often introduced without the knowledge or consent of parents, who were increasingly framed as obstacles to their own children's liberation. The school was no longer a partner with the family in the education of the child. It was an agent of the state, tasked with re-educating the child and liberating them from the prejudices of their parents. This is a classic tactic of totalitarian regimes, the creation of a wedge between the child and the family, making the child a ward of the state. This entire project, from the capture of the APA to the indoctrination of school children, is a perfect expression of the Frankist inversion doctrine. It is the systematic dismantling of traditional morality, the deliberate creation of confusion and chaos, and the elevation of transgression to the status of a sacred duty. It is the psychological and spiritual terraforming necessary to create a population that is not only susceptible to the media spell, but actively complicit in its own enslavement.